Hello and welcome to the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media podcast. My name is Kyle Tremblay and I'm the editor-in-chief at ShowRatings.tv, a user-driven television review website. Visit us online at www.showratings.tv and follow us on Twitter at ShowRatingsTV. Today's Pilot Roundtable topic is the new Showtime drama, Penny Dreadful. According to Showtime's website, some of literature's most terrifying characters, including Dr. Frankenstein, Dorian Gray, and iconic figures from the novel Dracula, are lurking in the darkest corners of Victorian London. Penny Dreadful is a frightening psychological thriller that weaves together these classic horror origin stories into a new adult drama. Here to talk about it is an excellent writer and TV critic whose reviews you can read on showratings.tv. She also manages our Tumblr and is currently studying abroad in London, where Penny Dreadful takes place. Megan Haas, welcome to the Roundtable.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here, Meg. I want to ask you, first and foremost, Showtime was gracious enough to post this pilot online before it premieres on May 11th. What did you think of it?
The pilot or the fact that they posted it early?
Everything. No, let's start with the pilot.
I enjoyed the pilot. I only have one critique of it because if you watch the pilot, you'll understand that it links to the episode 2, so it's almost as if it's a 2-part pilot, even though it's not being classified as a 2-part pilot. So I watched it and I felt like, okay, what's next? But not in the way of like, oh my goodness, I need to see the next episode, but in the way of I feel like I missed out on something. But other than that, it was great. I really think it's an interesting area for Showtime to be going into at this time.
So you felt like the story was maybe a little bit incomplete that the pilot told?
I didn't. I feel like it's not incomplete because I feel like episode 2 is going to answer that, and I've heard from people that have seen it that it's really intense and it's really. It showcases Eva Green's talent apparently amazingly, who plays the lead.
Yes.
And I can only imagine that she's going to do wonders with it, but I feel like if they wanted to make this the pilot part of a 2-part pilot, it would have made more sense. The same way if we only saw the first hour of Lost, it would have made sense. But it would have been like, okay, well, the next episode is completely connected to it.
So do you think Showtime made a mistake by releasing this one early and making us wait not 1 but 2 weeks before the second episode?
Well, no, because Showtime did that purely for marketing reasons. I mean, what other reason would you release something online early for besides to get people interested? And I mean, it goes along with they transformed streets in New York and LA. They transformed streets to look like Victorian England with Eva Green's face all over it. So, like, it's clearly part of Showtime's marketing strategy. And I didn't mind it because then that gives me a chance to watch it on my time instead of racing to catch up and be spoiled and all that. But, I mean, by seeing it early, I feel like I need to rewatch it again in order to see episode 2. I'm not going to, but I feel like they released it early for a reason, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good choice. It got a lot of people interested and got a lot of press already, and it hasn't even aired.
True. So I really enjoyed this pilot, and I thought I get what you're saying, that this was almost just the sort of the coming together story. It almost kind of felt like a get the team together thing.
They got their feet wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got your feet wet in this world, and I mean that's what a pilot's supposed to do. But coming from such press and such amazing reviews, and it's Sam Mendes and the guy from Skyfall, the writer. I mean, it's got like so many. It's got good reviews, and I feel like I got my feet wet. But I could do that on any show I want to.
And it's Timothy Dalton, a former James Bond. So we have a lot of James Bond stuff going on here. How much are you into the source material? Because this obviously is a show that prominently features literary stories like Frankenstein, Dorian Gray, and all that. How much are you into that stuff?
Well, when we first saw the promos back in ye olden spring, we saw the promos, and it's just Eva Green terrifyingly praying to a cross that turns upside down.
Yes.
I mean, they played those commercials on almost every Hulu everything, and it would be that moment where you're like, please don't air at night, please don't air at night, I can't sleep. So I get this like, oh, this is going to be terrifyingly scary, which in some ways it is. But then you bring in these Dracula, and in the premiere, this guy has an almost borderline romantic relationship with Frankenstein. Well, no, with his creation, because the doctor is Frankenstein. I'm not going to get criticized for that.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble there with the Twitter people.
I know, and I've seen the Frankenstein stuff from high school, but like and I get it. You're supposed to have he has this relationship with his creation, and it's very dramatic and Mary Shelley, whole nine yards. Anyway, I get that, but how am I supposed to be afraid of a monster that almost makes out with his creator? I don't understand. I'm not trying to criticize the show because I really, really do enjoy it, but the last time I've seen famous literary characters come into a show was Once Upon a Time, and don't get me started, it didn't work out extremely well for them.
I won't get you started on Once Upon a Time, but
like that's the only, like when you said famous literary characters, that's the only other thing I could think of in recent time that had these recurrence of people famous that we know. So right. I think they could do this well. However, I'm not. I'm pretty unsure about it.
Yeah, well, it's a very specific genre of taking literary characters that we know and inserting them into a story that we don't, which is the Once Upon a Time thing, and seems to be gaining popularity. Your answer to that leads me to my next question, which I think is a very important question for a show that self-identifies as horror, which is, did you find this pilot scary?
And I have an answer for you.
Oh, good.
I love horror. I love horror movies. I love being scared. It's an irrational love. I don't know. But the thing that scares me is Eva Green's face. It's gorgeous, but it's scary. So, I mean, the scene where she's praying to the cross, I was like, I don't want to look at your face. I do want to look at. I know I don't. Yes, I do. It was like that back and forth. And Eva Green's face, as stupid as this might sound, is going to drive a lot of the horror. She has a very reactionable face. So, besides that, unless they get me to really be terrified of Dracula and really be terrified of this Frankenstein, it's going to be the element that was there when Eva Green was praying to the cross. That's going to be the element that is going to be scary.
That's interesting that you bring up Eva Green, that praying scene, and that we revisited that a couple times in this episode, because I thought that might have been pushing the show a little too far in the American Horror Story direction. Those scenes worry me.
The thing that is, it can worry you, but the difference it has between American Horror Story, and I say this in the most utmost consideration for that show, that was sarcasm, it was actually scary. I don't know if you were scared of it, but if Sarah Paulson, I love her, and if you're listening, which you're probably not, I do love you with all of my heart. However, if Sarah Paulson was praying to a cross that turned upside down with spiders, on that show, if we placed her at a different show with different settings, probably, but on that show, I don't think, like, if Lana Winter suddenly was praying to a cross that went nuts, like, I don't think I'd be that scared.
Yeah, I think I could see that scene being scary. That scene didn't entirely work for me in this series because it happened with no context. Yes. And that to me is the defining trait of American Horror Story, is that nothing on that show has any context, and so it's not scary. And so when I compare that scene to American Horror Story, it's in contrast to the rest of this pilot, which I thought did a good job of establishing context. But
that brings me back to what I was saying with this no context, like, because we've had 3 separate seasons of American Horror Story and they all have the same strain of no context.
Yeah.
I feel like we know that if American Horror Story introduces something, that we might not get a chance to revisit it or wrap it up or know why they're doing it. They might just be doing it for gore, shock, or whatever. But what this is like, I need to see the second episode because she's praying for something, and I've seen the promo. She's praying for somebody. That's not out of context, but like that's why I think they should have either introduced more things in the pilot and saved like Frankenstein for the second episode. or made it a two-parter or something. I think they made a mistake of the context connections
Yes.
in this establishing episode.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that they're going to explain why she's doing that. I think that putting that scene up front and then the explanation later is I agree is not great, because that's not the kind of scene that this show needs. It doesn't need to lead with that stuff because it is an interesting world and it's characters that I am interested in. And I don't think that it needs to rush the shock scares.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that way, like I think it does. It can. I understand why it put that spider scene up front because it's a very memorable scene, but I
Yeah.
don't think that it needed it. I think there was enough in this pilot that was at least making an attempt to be scary.
The thing is,
That was
like, I
fine.
know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. The thing is, I just want to, before I forget, if they had this scene and an ending that didn't involve Frankenstein, and but involved more of, I forget her character already.
Oh,
That character's,
Victoria Ives, I think.
yes,
Vanessa.
Veronica,
Vanessa.
Vanessa. We will just list all of the V names, and she
We
will
got
be
there.
all of them. But Vanessa, if we heard more about why Vanessa was praying,
Yes.
that scene would have been a lot heavier. It was heavy already, but in the way that I'm watching this and it's like, oh my goodness. That's why it's heavy.
I th-
But it's not heavy in the it was random. So if they took out Frankenstein and made that the second episode, then we would have been like, "Oh, that makes sense." But they're not doing that. They literally did it for the people watching it in the dark in their basement.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That the Frankenstein thing was obviously like a little button to put on the end of this because everyone knows Frankenstein and it's exciting
Yeah.
and yada yada. And they also went for that Frankenstein scene was very traditionally scary in the sort of horror movie sense, where the lights go out and then he lights the
Yeah.
lantern and Frankenstein's monster is gone. Like it's a very
Well,
traditional horror scene.
I thought it was scary until
Yeah,
he like came close to close, like obsessed with it, which is what drives that story. Don't get me
of
wrong, but if
course.
we're going the scary route, I don't really want to see him. He almost made out with him, which is not. It would be fine if they did that story and backed it up and had reasons, but they just kind of like he just made out. He almost made out with him, and I'm like, I'm not scared of the guy that was like in the lightning flash anymore.
They
He's
should
now having like a young and the restless moment with his
they
creation,
should have played like romantic music under that scene.
right?
Really. Speaking of romance, do you see romance in the future for the Eva Green character and the Josh Hartnett character, Ethan
That's
Chandler?
that's the dude, right? Yeah,
Yeah, the gunfighter guy.
yeah. Yes,
Hmm.
because it marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Showtime. I wonder if we're gonna have naked people because that's marketing.
Uh huh.
B, it's Showtime, so you need some sort of I don't know. It's this story that at face value are about these two people, the Malcolm Murray searching for his daughter
Hmm.
and Vanessa searching for somebody else. But that story becomes old. It's just like Kate Beckett searching for her mother's killer.
Oh, bringing up Castle.
It's just because it's fresh in my mind.
You're watching
It's
Castle.
it's just like that story where if we had a series simply based on Kate Beckett's search for her mother, it would be over in a season and we'd be bored unless like HBO did it. Um, but then like this, like I feel like at face value, this is either going to get way too big over their heads or boring. So having this romance, you can have, oh, you almost died and I missed you, like all these like really like gushy moments for people who are not really into the horror.
Mhm.
I, for one, as soon as I see somebody to ship, I will do it.
Oh
So
yes.
I'll be into this show. The moment they were fighting the people that looked like White Walkers gone wrong. What happened? You know what I mean? The big monsters.
The vampires.
They were vampires? Okay.
The fangs weren't a clue.
Well, I don't know. They were just giant tall people that looked like they needed a burger and like not scaly skin.
I
So
a burger.
just gonna give them burger and Neutrogena.
Isn't that what we all need? A burger and not scaly skin.
I'm looking at them like, are they a snake? Are they not? They've got pointy teeth, but like
Yeah.
Wendigos have pointy teeth. I don't know what's happening.
Well,
So
they had hieroglyphics inside them.
yes, what vampire has hieroglyphics?
Yeah,
We're not mummy.
maybe they weren't exactly vampires, but of that sort,
Maybe
in
maybe
that
they should
genre.
just put a little flash and go, Meg, we are vampires. And hey, all right, continue your
they,
story.
they should explain these things for you. Um, so you brought up the Malcolm Murray story about his daughter missing, and I feel like this is a thing that a lot of shows, specifically genre shows like this,
Hmm.
do, which is the real selling point of Penny Dreadful is the world, is the
Yeah.
monsters, is this whole big world. But there has to be a track that takes us through this world, and that track appears to be Malcolm Murray's daughter being kidnapped. Are you after just one episode? But are you invested at all in that story?
Um, well, I'm invested in the show in the sense that it's a pilot. So I'm invested in this in the sense that it's a story that we're going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Through his missing daughter, we get to learn a number of things, including how he and Vanessa came to be talking to each other. I'm assuming there's nothing romantically behind that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
can I say who Vanessa's searching for? Because I know.
You do? Is it a spoiler?
Well, I mean, not really. I know who she's searching for. I know who she's praying for. I don't know if they said it in the pilot, but I know it. That she's praying for a friend. So I'm
Okay.
assuming she's getting her friend back. So in that, maybe the daughter was her friend, but the daughter's a kid. I don't know. And then we have that introduction of those two random people kidnapped, and so they have a connection somewhere. And then we're going to see the world that way. We're going to see the world because what's his face with the vampires, he's going to probably fall in love with Vanessa because let's face it, who wouldn't? So if they do it right, I'll be invested simply because they can do it right and it's a story.
Sure. Okay.
That was a roundabout way saying if they make it entertaining, I'll like it.
Yes, as is the case with most shows. If it's good, we'll watch.
Yes.
So two more questions. Um, who who do you think the audience is for this show? And by that I mean, what shows on TV, if people like them,
Ow.
would they like this show? Did you just hurt yourself?
Yes. Um, and I tried to silence it too. I don't know if you heard that. Um, the audience for this show, see, when I was first watching it, it reminded me of early Supernatural. Like,
Okay.
not whatever it is. It might be good now. I'm not watching it. Whatever the mess is this season, but like first season Supernatural, I may have been in middle school, but I found it scary. So, I mean, I found people who would like that would find it scary. People who wanted American Horror Story to scare them, but really didn't, probably would find it. Anybody who likes shipping people, because that's gonna happen. I mean, the tagline should just be like, "We've got scary people and hot people, so watch us." So, I
as
mean,
as is the tagline of most Showtime shows.
yes, but I mean, they did that with American Horror Story, and I was like, "You don't have scary
Yeah.
people."
I think the Supernatural comparison, while I don't think this show has any of the camp of Supernatural, that
No,
Supernatural has always had that sort of camp factor where it's kind of self-aware that
yeah.
it's okay. This show has no sense of humor in that way. Um,
Mm-mm.
but I do think the way that Supernatural is episodic is going to play into this because this does seem like the kind of show that might have, at least at times, a sort of case of the week. You
Yeah, I
know,
was gonna say they might have a monster of the week.
yes.
I kind of don't want them to. I kind of want them to play out like as an ensemble piece, like kind of like Eva Green, Frankenstein, and Timothy walk in a bar.
Yeah.
So like they walk into a room and what happens? I kind of want that to happen, or not Timothy, that's his real name. What Malcolm in the middle, Murray guy,
Let's,
that one,
let's call him James Bond.
that guy.
Yeah.
I kind of want it to be like all these people are running around, and how does that affect their lives, and not like we saw Frankenstein and that's done. Like I kind of like what Once Upon a Time is doing, just better.
Yeah.
So I kind of want that to be like that.
I think it's based on the pilot, and I could be wrong. I think it's going to be an FX style show where, like the first season of Justified, where you have Monster of the Week stories, or like Hannibal is right now, where you have some monsters of the week, but then the show very easily slips into serial storytelling, where you have
You
plenty of weeks where there is
see
no.
how
monster?
You mean how their main character sleeps with somebody
No.
who's the villain? Just like that, Kyle?
I'm not saying the plot specifics of Hannibal, merely the structure. I did not mean to offend your Alana-loving heart. So, final verdict. Give this pilot a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
A thumbs up.
Yes.
But a thumbs up that kind of gets, like, needs to be cracked on the way up.
So like, you're still a little bit wary?
Like, a thumbs up, and then you go, hold on, let me crack my knuckles, and then you do a thumbs up.
Okay.
That kind of thumbs up.
A tentative, crackling thumbs up.
You want to give it a thumbs up, and then you're like, wait, something's stopping me. Hold on. Then you fix it, and you're like, okay, thumbs up.
Well, I am going to give this a thumbs up with no qualifications. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think the series is going to be excellent, and I am excited to watch the next episode. Meg, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you online?
No, Twitter at MEGGH11.
There you go.
I spelled that out because there's 2 G's in there.
Yeah, well, I would hate to see someone try to pronounce it. And we can of course read your writing, your mini reviews of mini shows at showratings.tv.
Of course, and you can follow the Show Ratings Tumblr at showratings.tumblr.com.
There we go. So that concludes this episode of the showratings.tv Pilot Roundtable. We invite you to check out this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts at southgatemediagroup.com and to read about, rate, and discuss all your favorite shows at showratings.tv. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV, Meg at MEGGH11, and Show Ratings at Show Ratings TV. This has been Kyle Tremblay. Thanks for listening.